Hello, everybody. My name is Mo Elias. I own a shop in New York called Big Apple Art Gallery and Framing. Today, we're going to interview Barbara, and Barbara just recently sold her shop. Actually, she sold it Christmas, a couple of days before Christmas. So, congratulations to her. And we're going to go ahead and introduce my guest, Barbara. Hey, Barbara, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Very good. Hey, thank you for doing this. This is very helpful. As you know, there's a lot of people looking to sell their shops, and it'll be good to find out how you went about it and what you did and everything else.
All right.
So, Barbara, tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm going to put up your Facebook page over here if anybody wants to check it out. Very active Facebook page. I checked out her website. Really cool website. And some of these things are probably contributing factors to the fact that she was able to sell. I'm going to let Barbara introduce herself. Tell us a little about how long you've been doing this.
Oh, well, thank you. I've owned the store for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to believe. I started when I was 6 years old. No. Yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I actually started working in a frame shop. Trying to make a career change. I went back to college and found a frame shop. Just one of those things. I never really thought about it, but it was a flexible schedule, and I thought it was interesting. And I worked for her for a year. And
so that's when you were 7, right?
Yeah, right. No, I was about, I think 27, somewhere in there. And anyway, I could tell that her store wasn't doing very well, but it was none of my business. But at the end of like 9 months or so, she said, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to close the store." Well, I had gotten the bug, and I loved working there, and I just kept thinking and thinking and thinking about it. So, I remember walking out one day and looking at my checkbook, and I had like $48. And she came in the next day and said, "Well, I've been thinking maybe you should buy the store."
Buy the store, okay.
Yeah, with $48. But I did exactly that. So
you bought this for $48?
No, I decided I wanted it, so I went and my car was paid for, and I had we had just recently bought a house, so the banker sort of liked that, so they gave me a loan, and I just basically bought her equipment.
Okay.
So, and set up a shop actually at my house. And I had it in my home for 4 years, and then, got tired of it being in my house, and anyway, went into town and leased a space, and that's what I've been doing.
So you bought a store that's not doing well. You had $48 account.
Don't do what I did.
You mortgaged your house to buy the store.
Well, I refinanced my car. Is what I did.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now you open up your shop, and you had it for 30 years.
Yeah.
And you say, "Hey, I'm gonna sell the shop now," right?
Yeah.
I want to go back. I'm gonna actually give it a little picture. So you're in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, right?
Right.
And how big is this town?
17,000.
17,000. So I wouldn't consider it a very large town, correct?
No.
Yeah. And how many shops are there?
I'm sorry.
How many frame shops are there?
Well, right now it's just me and Hobby Lobby. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anybody looking for real good custom work, they're not going to Hobby Lobby, and you're it.
Right.
Right. All right. So let's go back to, okay, so you have the store for 30 years, and you're like, "Hey, man, I got to get out of this. I'm going to go to the Bahamas and live in retirement. I don't want to sell," right? So what do you do? How do you go about it?
Well, we decided that we would both retire, my husband and I, about 2 years ago. So I kind of started talking to other framers to see what they had done. I knew a couple of framers that had sold, so I just started picking up the phone and calling people and saying, "What did you do?" So
are these people you knew, or just you found out?
Yeah, I've been very active in PPFA for 15 years or so. So I had a lot of connections, thankfully. And, just reached back to some of those people that had been successful in selling their store.
Sure.
And, started getting an idea. I was, like we were talking just before we went live, I was doing all of this and telling people, well, kind of keep this quiet. I
Sure.
talked to a couple other business people in town that had, businesses and maybe had sold their business. And I was trying to keep it very, very quiet because I thought, well, when I announced that this is going to be for sale, just like you said, I want everybody to know it.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, or we decided, that I would make an announcement in January of last year.
20. Oh, 20. What a year to pick. Sure.
I have always been the queen of perfect timing.
Sure.
I mean, I got my computerized mat cutter on 9/10, 2001.
Oh my God.
The biggest purchase that I made for my shop the day before 9/11. So anyway, yeah, queen of timing. So
So how do you let people know? So you decided that you're going to let people know January 2020. How did you spread the word? How did you let people know?
Well, right before that, I contacted 2 commercial real estate agents, and just to see, I knew that they wouldn't take my business, but I wanted to see if they had any kind of connection to a commercial broker.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew that was a long shot, but really, I wanted them to know that I was getting ready to sell my business because commercial realtors have a lot of connections.
Have a lot of commercial connections. Good for you.
Yeah.
Smart.
So I thought, well, that might be handy to have those people informed.
Sure.
And, and then of course I reached out to my banker and talked to them about pricing, but also let him know that it was for sale in case he had somebody he was working with that might want a small business. Because he had put a bug in my ear at one point that if I ever did want to sell, contact him, because a lot of times he would have people who would want a business, like especially like the wife of a doctor who something to do, but they really want to write off or something like that. And
Sure.
I thought, well, sure, I'll get in touch with him and let him know. And, and then just different key people in the community I reached out for before I made a public announcement. So the, like I said, my lawyer, my accountant, my banker, the Chamber of Commerce president, which I'm on a couple of committees there, and so I'll let him know. All the board members. I'm on a city board and a couple of different boards, and I'll let them know. And then the next week, I made a public announcement, and I sent out a MailChimp to all my customers.
And you told them in the MailChimp that you are selling the business?
Yes. And then
were you afraid that would slow down your business until at the time that it got literally until it got sold? Were you afraid of that?
No, I wasn't. I thought it would probably, if anything, would get busier, which it did.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
And then that same day, a few hours later, I put it on Facebook, and we do have a very active Facebook page. And being in a small town, I think I've always kind of joked that we are a Facebook community, Facebook town. So I knew as soon as it got on Facebook, it'd be a lot of, chitter chatter around for that. So the word got out and around pretty quickly.
Smart. So, I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and I forgot what we were discussing, but one of the things that that we came up with is you get what you put into something, right? You put the calls into your banker, your broker, the real estate people. You're like, I know they won't take my business, but I wanted them to know. So and then you did it on Facebook. So you put a lot of work into it. This doesn't come to you by accident. You just nobody gets it because they didn't work for it. It seems like you did plenty of work.
Well, I feel like I put at least a lot of thought in it, and
Sure.
Timing. I really kind of scheduled all of these meetings with different people all in the same week, because I knew it's just going to get out. And it's like you said, once it's out, you want people to know that you're selling for the right reasons.
Sure.
Because especially in a small town, a lot of people with a small business might say, oh, well, maybe they're closing, or maybe they're wanting to get out of it because they're not doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
There's always this kind of, so you want to send the right message.
And you want, look, one of the concerns I would probably be, or if I were to sell, I don't want to sell now, it would be, hey, would my customers continue coming to me if they found out that I'm selling the shop? But if you control the message and you say, look, I'm selling it because I'm retiring and I'm looking for people, it might be a good message. And you mentioned to me earlier when you announced it, you said you got busier, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Immediately we had a kind of a surge of business that came in and said, because in my email I did say, if I don't sell, I will close at the end of the year.
Ah, sure. But it was your intention anyway, correct? If you didn't sell,
and so people came in and said, well, I've got all this. You know how people are.
Of course.
Framing's never a priority.
Yeah.
So people will have something under their bed to be framed for like 18 years before they get it to you. So it was a little push, and I thought, well, some of these people will start digging things out and bring it in, and that's definitely what happened. We had a huge surge at the beginning of the year, which turned out to be great because you know what happened in February.
Don't I know about it?
So, oh my goodness, the bottom fell out of everything.
Sure.
Then, so we were lucky. We had kind of a stockpile of orders that carried us for a couple of months.
How long was your lockdown, Barb?
Lockdown in our community was only 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
I'd like to say that we were lucky, but I don't really want to get too much. Missouri has been one of the most lax states, kind of sadly, but they didn't want to stop the economy. After just 2 weeks, they left it up to city officials. So we reopened very quickly. But in 2 weeks, we pivoted pretty well. I set up a counter right at my front window.
Yeah.
And I think I saw in your group actually that somebody had made some really cool signs that said, this is how you do curbside, 1, 2, 3. And so I had those printed up real quick and put them out front.
Nice. Very nice.
We kind of sectioned off just a few square feet at the front door and had a table there where people could pass their work, and then we'd put it on the counter at the window and be on our cell phones back and forth. We moved all of our samples and our mat corner samples and everything right up to the front window.
Good for you.
We didn't lose too much.
Good for you. So now lockdown is over. The business is still for sale. Now, let's go back. I want to go back to how did you price your business? If you do you mind sharing that information?
Okay. Well, I first did a complete inventory right at the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Since I knew it was coming up that I was going to make that announcement, I really kind of let some of my inventory dwindle.
Sure.
If you will, because I thought, if this doesn't sell, I don't want to have to, at the end of 2020, have to dump a lot of inventory. So at that point, I started making, molding and different things kind of, so anyway, got a good.
Barbara, I follow your Facebook page. You have a lot of gift items too, right?
We do.
How much gift items did you have in the inventory? Was it a substantial amount?
No, not really. I have a very small store. The front of the store is only 1,500 square feet, and a big chunk of that is 2 really large framing counters. So I would say probably a little less than 1,000 square feet is really gift items.
Okay, so framing is the majority.
Yeah, but we had, I think at the first of the year it was somewhere around 40 to 45,000 in gifts,
mm-hmm.
inventory, and anyway, so I I did an inventory and then put a value on all my equipment and everything in the store. And then actually I didn't know where to go to from there because I had heard the range from different people in the framing world of how they came up to their prices. I mean, it's just crazy. So I really talked to my banker and to my accountant. And my accountant especially, got into, I've had the same accountant for years, so they knew what the store was making. And, we kind of went off of that. So
your accounting was the one who helped you with the pricing?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, I thought it was interesting because my banker came up with a little higher price.
Okay.
Than my accountant did. And I would have to say my accountant was really critical in my decision because he just talked plain. I'm not a huge money maker. I mean, I'm making good income, but the business is small enough that somebody couldn't buy it and then hire a manager.
They have to work in it. Sure.
They need to work in it. So basically, he said, somebody is buying a job, and
Sure.
There might be a little bit room for a second partner, maybe, but really they're just buying a job. And, and I needed to be realistic about what I could get for it. So
can we talk about some numbers? Would you talk about some numbers?
Sure. Let's see. I don't know if they call it blue sky anymore or not, but taking that into consideration, and we did pull up our website and look at that, and our social media presence, and our, we took into consideration, my email addresses, and everything that I've built to drive customer business, and besides just the sales. That was, of course, the biggest part of it, but we looked at everything.
Sure.
We ended up deciding on a range somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000. I thought 150,000 was a little high. That's what my banker came up with, but you have to think, what does a banker want? Sure. They want something that sells at the highest price so that they can get the most money off the interest. So I decided to ask 135,000.
135. Okay.
So
now, how much did your store do a year?
We have, ever since Hobby Lobby came back in, we've been doing about 185,000. So it's really dropped from where it was, 10 years ago.
Sure.
But I don't have the staff that I used to have either. So again, when that happened, I had to do some adjustments and make all the, adjust my sales, so to speak, and, change course and decide what I needed to get to put in my pocket. So I had a full-time person who left the store, and I just decided at that point I wouldn't replace them. So I'm still
on your own. You run the shop. You were able to run the shop, and so all the sales you made, right? You made the sales. You made the frames. You completed the jobs.
Yeah, I do have one full-time and one part-time person.
Okay.
I have two full-time and two part-time people.
Okay. So, and you didn't bring back another full-timer. I see.
Right.
All right. So now you set your price, and that's okay. So if I bought the shop, I'm gonna make it back in about 2 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. So okay. So now you set up your price. Now, how do you find a customer? How did you find a customer? A buyer?
The gentleman that bought it was actually a former employee. He was there for 5 years and then left for 5 years. So he was working for me, 10 years ago. And I actually had about 7 or 8 potential buyers before it actually sold.
So the 7 or 8 and your previous employee, Did you contact them? They contact you? How did you reach out to each one of these people? How did you find them?
The first serious buyer came in off of my MailChimp, and it was a customer.
Sure.
And the second one was also a customer. Um, I had a lot of customers come in and ask about it, but some of them were just kicking tires, I guess. But the first couple of them, actually during lockdown, came in and shadowed me for a couple of days.
Ah,
Just worked out pretty well to be, shut down so that we could be kind of private with that. Um, you know, that ended up not working out, obviously. But let's see, another serious potential buyer was another store owner that was about 75 miles from here, and I
a
reached
frame
out.
shop? Another frame shop? Okay.
Yes.
75 months. Okay, so he doesn't compete with you in this market, right?
No, not really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to them because I have a kind of a friendly relationship with them. And so
Sure.
one day I just picked up the phone and said, by the way, I forgot to tell you, but my store is for sale and
Sure.
we'd love to have you, because they do some interior design and things like that. And I said, it's completely open over
Yeah.
here. So, they were pretty serious. They ended up coming over and shadowing for a day or so, and ended up deciding that the drive was too much for them
Mm-hmm.
to take on. But they weren't completely out of the picture when Tad decided to go ahead and take
Sell to the employee.
Mhm.
So, how did you reach out to your employee? Was he also in your MailChimp list?
Um, I'm sorry, say that again.
How did you reach out to your employee, the previous employee? How
Oh,
did he?
I contacted all of them before, actually.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Smart. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I had 3 former employees and one, actually my current full-time person, I talked to her first. But I had 3 former employees that I thought might be good, contacts to make.
Mm-hmm.
So he was managing a shoe store here in town, and I knew that he wasn't happy with corporate retail. And anyway, I just called him up and said, "This might be a good fit for you."
Yeah.
So
You're great. Your personality, I can see it. Calling people up and say, "Okay, listen, man, I got this shop for sale. Why don't you come over and talk to me?" I can see you doing that. That's great. Your personality just is very fitting for what you do. Okay, so you reach out to this person, and then he or she, right, your employee, and they're like, "Oh, I'm interested." So how do you work out the financing? Because I can't imagine somebody having that much cash on hand, correct?
right. Well, that's where that conversation with my banker
Mm-hmm.
came back around, because when I was talking to him, we've known each other a long time. I've worked with him for 30 years, and actually, we didn't know each other in college, but we went to college together.
Uh-huh.
So, we have that connection. We have a good relationship, and at the end of our little meeting, he said, if there's somebody that you really feel good about, he said, unless they just have a terrible credit rating, he said, we can make this happen. We can be creative. Um, so that's what I told my employee, because at first he said, I'm a former employee, he said, I don't know that I can swing that. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
if you want it, we can meet with my banker and figure it out.
That's
So
great. So you helped them
yeah.
finance. So you kind of helped them finance it, right?
Well, not me personally, but
But you made the connection. I mean,
yeah,
they would not have known that banker. They would not have had that relationship, and you did.
yeah.
It's
So
it's a one-stop shop right there.
well, and especially, sorry to say, especially a small town, but I don't know if that's really the case. But it's good to have connections.
Of
It's good
course.
to have contacts, and network, and I've always been a big believer in networking in your community and building relationships with people like your accountant and your banker and your chamber president and different
Mhm.
people.
So they came in, you introduced them to the banker, and then how did the financing work? Did the banker approve them right away? Was there any issues?
Well, he went through the process just like anybody else would, but it didn't really take very long for him to get a yes answer. It was more like, well, what took time was, okay, I need this because I've got to present all this to the bank board.
Sure.
Okay. So getting together paperwork, but it actually went pretty quickly.
That's
So
very nice. So let's say you introduced this in January, made it public. When did you close?
December 23rd.
Merry Christmas to Barbara, right?
Right. Yeah, we wanted to do it sooner, but the actual little delay there at the end was the lawyer just could not get us in, and poor Tad, he kept leaving his work every afternoon at like 5 or whenever he left his store, and then he would come over and just he was so anxious to get in the store, he would come over and just do anything, work around the store. But anyway,
Yeah,
he finally got an appointment on the 23rd. So
that's good. Congratulations.
thank you.
Now,
So,
is that in the Framers Only group?
yes, I told him to get in there and get in there, and he's been coming in and commenting. Oh, I read this or I saw this. This is real interesting. So
Well, congratulations to Tad for the shop. I think getting a shop from you that would be great. I looked at your website. I follow your Facebook group and I see the posts you do, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff, and I can see how much work you put into the business. The fact that you got a sale, I don't think it happens by accident. You went through it. You did all this work. Like I was telling you before, Larry Pearl did something similar. He sent a MailChimp, or he used whatever else he uses. I think he used the other service. I use MailChimp like you.
yeah.
And then he hired people, but in his ads, he asked people to for work, but as a potential buyer or as an investment. And I think it was pretty cool. I did an interview with him a couple of years back.
Yes, and I was going to say that some of my prospects sort of dried up around June or so, and I had seen that, um, what he had done, and so I thought, well, I'm going to send out another MailChimp because we know if you use MailChimp that only about 18% of those get opened. So I thought, well, it's time for another round, and that brought in a whole other
Batch of people.
And that time, that's the approach I made, and I followed it up on Facebook with Artfully Framed is looking for a new owner, and kind of just, well, you know what we do, we rip off everybody's good ideas all the time.
That's the way it works, right? That's how we do it. We learn from each other. That's great. Barb, there's one question for Renee. Question is, did the new owner change the name of your business?
No, he's kept it as Artfully Framed, and I think a couple of years down the road he may make a change. But like I said, we've been there for 30 years. I feel pretty good that we have a good reputation, and people know the store. So I think it would, and I told him, I said, you can do what you want to, but you're buying the name.
You're
So,
paying for the good name of the business. Sure. Absolutely. Sure. I would keep it.
yeah.
If the name wasn't good, then why would I pay for it? Why would I buy the business?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Barbara, this is great. I appreciate you making time for us, sharing all this information. And you're very kind, because last week I had this situation to reschedule this for me this week. I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. You have a good day, and happy retirement.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Barbara.
Bye.
Bye-bye.